A study published in a peer-reviewed nutrition journal found that people with high blood sugar who changed nothing about what they ate, not the calories, not the carbohydrates, not the portions cut them, reduced their post-meal glucose spike by 37%, just by changing the order of what went on their fork.
She had not eaten a single slice of bread in 4 years. Not sourdough, not whole wheat, not even a small dinner roll at Thanksgiving.
4 years of watching her grandchildren pass the bread basket right past her. 4 years of ordering bunless burgers, asking waiters to swap the sandwich for a salad, sitting across from her husband at breakfast while he ate toast and she ate eggs with nothing on the side. Her name was Margaret. She was 7 years old. Her fasting blood sugar had been running between 112, 126 for 3 years tides, right in the pre-diabetes range tides, and her doctor had told her plainly to stay away from refined carbohydrates. So she did, and her numbers barely moved. That is when her daughter found Study Tom and showed Margaret something that changed the way she thought about bread, about blood sugar, and about the 5 minutes before every meal. Today, I am going to show you exactly what that study found. I am going to explain the specific mechanism behind it, and I am going to walk you through 5 things you can start doing today before your next meal pro that my patients in their 50s, 60s, and 70s are using to manage blood sugar spikes without giving up the foods they actually love. If you have been told to avoid bread, rice, pasta, or starchy vegetables, stay with me. Because what I am about to share does not ask you to eat less. It asks you to eat in the right order. And there is a difference that will show up on your next blood test. Here is what you are going to learn in this video. Number 1, the specific technique and executable in under 5 minutes bar that can blunt a post-meal blood sugar spike by up to 37%. No medication, no skipping a single bite of what is already on your plate. Number 2, the biological reason why bread causes such a sharp glucose response in people over 50 times, and why it is not entirely the bread's fault. It has more to do with your age than the bread itself. Number 3, 3 patient examples, Pipes, a 61-year-old man, a 72-year-old woman who had gone 7 years without bread, and a 58-year-old woman with insulin resistance on 2 medications. All 3 responded differently. All 3 improved. Number 4, the plate sequence method, what I call the exact order your meal should follow, that requires no special food, no supplements, and about 15 seconds of thought before you sit down. Number 5, the one bonus move that almost nobody in my patient population has heard of. A 2-teaspoon protocol you do 5 minutes before eating that research shows can reduce glucose peaks by an additional 20% on top of sequencing. Stay through all 5. The 5th one will surprise you. I am a registered dietitian with a clinical focus in metabolic health and glycemic management in older adults. The content I share in these videos is grounded in peer-reviewed research and represents general educational information. It is not personalized medical advice, and I am not your treating physician. This channel uses an AI-generated presenter to deliver that educational content, and I want to be transparent about that so you always know what you are watching. I have spent the better part of my career working with patients who arrive at the office carrying a list of foods their doctor told them to stop eating, and leaving with a much shorter list than they expected. The research on blood sugar management has moved significantly in the past decade. A great deal of what patients were told in the 90s and early 2000s has since been refined, qualified, or in some cases reversed by better studies. What I am sharing today is one of those refinements. It does not overturn the importance of diet and medication, but it adds something most people have never been given. A tool that works at the level of timing, not deprivation. Let me take you back to Margaret. After 4 years of avoiding bread, her fasting glucose was still hovering in the pre-diabetes range. She was eating what most people would call a clean diet. Eggs, vegetables, lean protein, low sugar fruit. She had lost 11 pounds. She was walking 30 minutes most days. And still, 114, 119, 122. Her daughter showed her a study from the European Journal of Clinical Nutrition, published in 2015, involving 38 participants with type 2 diabetes or impaired glucose tolerance. The researchers did not change what the participants ate. They changed the order in which they ate it. Specifically, the participants ate the protein and vegetable portion of their meal first, and the carbohydrate portion last. Same food, same total calories, same meal, different order. The result? Post-meal blood sugar peaks were 37% lower when protein and vegetables came before carbohydrates. Insulin levels followed the same pattern, significantly reduced when the meal started with protein rather than bread. A follow-up study from Weill Cornell Medicine, published in 2017, replicated the finding and added one more data point. Eating vegetables first, then protein, then carbohydrates, produced the lowest glucose peaks of all three sequences tested. Vegetables first, then protein, then carbs. That specific order mattered. Margaret tried it the next morning. She made scrambled eggs, a small salad, and one slice of whole wheat toast. She ate the salad first, then the eggs. Then for the first time in 4 years and odd, she ate the toast. Her 2-hour post-meal blood sugar came in at 131. The previous morning, eating the same calories in a different order, it had peaked at 167. Same food, 36 points lower, by changing nothing except the sequence. I want to pause here for a moment, Tess, because I know what some of you are thinking. You are thinking that is too simple. If this worked, my doctor would have told me. Your doctor may not have mentioned it because the research, while solid, is relatively recent and relatively small in sample size. And because telling someone to eat in a specific order is a harder conversation than telling them to cut a food group. But the mechanism behind it is well-established physiology, and that is what we are going to look at right now. Here is why food sequencing works and why it matters especially for people over 50. When you eat carbohydrates, bread, rice, pasta, fruit, potatoes, Joe, your digestive system breaks them down into glucose and releases that glucose into your bloodstream. The faster the breakdown, the sharper the spike. Your pancreas responds to that spike by releasing insulin, which signals your cells to absorb the glucose. In a healthy, insulin-sensitive system, this process is smooth. In people with insulin resistance, which becomes increasingly common with age, particularly after 50 veg, the cells do not respond as efficiently to that insulin signal. The glucose stays elevated longer. The pancreas pushes out more insulin, and over time, that cycle wears down the system further. Here is what changes when protein and vegetables come first. Protein triggers the release of a hormone called glucagon-like peptide 1 done, GLP-1 done, which slows gastric emptying. Food moves from your stomach into your small intestine more slowly. When digestion slows, glucose enters your bloodstream more gradually, rather than in one sharp wave. The spike is lower. The insulin demand is lower. Your cells have time to respond. Vegetables, particularly non-starchy ones, add dietary fiber. Fiber forms a physical barrier in your gut that slows the absorption of any glucose that arrives afterward. It also feeds beneficial gut bacteria that produce short-chain fatty acids, which independently improve insulin sensitivity over time. So when you eat protein and vegetables before carbohydrates, you are sending two slow-down signals to your digestive system before the glucose-producing food even arrives. The carbohydrates hit a gut that is already buffered, already slowing. That is why the spike is 37% lower. Not because the carbohydrates disappeared, because they arrived in a prepared environment. This is physiology. It is not a trick, and it is available to anyone at any meal starting tonight. Let me show you how this plays out in actual patients. The pattern looks different at different ages and with different metabolic profiles. Robert, 61 years old. Robert came to me with a hemoglobin A1C of 6.2, heno, just above the prediabetes threshold. He was about 25 pounds overweight, eating a standard American diet, and was not on any medication. His doctor had told him to cut carbohydrates, which he had done inconsistently for 6 months with minimal progress. Robert loved sandwiches. That was his non-negotiable. Lunch was always a sandwich, and he was not interested in that changing. We did not change the sandwich. We changed what came before it. Robert started eating a small green salad prune, literally just lettuce, cucumber, and olive oil toast before his sandwich every day at lunch. That was the only change for the first 4 weeks. His average post-lunch glucose dropped from 182 to 149. Not dramatic, but consistent. And for the first time in months, his numbers were moving in the right direction. without him eliminating any food he actually wanted. Dorothy, 72 years old. Dorothy had been managing type 2 diabetes with oral medication for 11 years. Her A1C had been stable at 6.8. Not terrible, but not improving. She had eliminated bread entirely for 7 years and maintained that discipline without complaint. Dorothy's problem was not bread. Her problem was breakfast. She was eating a banana and a glass of orange juice first thing in the morning, high glycemic index, fast glucose release, nothing to slow it down, followed by yogurt. We restructured her mornings. Greek yogurt with 2 tablespoons of chia seeds came first. Then, if she wanted fruit, half a banana came after. No more juice. And for the first time in 7 years avowed, I told Dorothy she could have half a slice of whole grain toast with her breakfast. Dorothy did not believe me. She tried it for 2 weeks. Her post-breakfast 2-hour glucose, which had been averaging 171 Pa, dropped to 138. She sent me a note on a Tuesday morning that just said, "I ate toast. My number was 136. I cried." Linda, 58 years old. Linda was the most insulin-resistant of the 3. Her A1C was 7.1, she was on 2 oral medications, and she had a strong family history of type 2 diabetes. She came to me having already tried a lot of approaches, most of which had not worked.
What I told Linda was this: food sequencing is a tool, not a cure. It works best when it is consistent.
And when the carbohydrates you are sequencing are whole food sources rather than highly processed ones. Linda committed to 3 things: eating vegetables or protein first at every meal for 30 days, replacing white bread with whole grain at a minimum of 5 meals per week, and adding a 10-minute walk after dinner. Not a long walk, just 10 minutes, which research consistently shows can reduce post-meal glucose by blunting the peak through muscular glucose uptake. After 30 days, Linda's A1C had not yet moved clear. That takes longer. But her average post-dinner readings had dropped from 188 to 152. Her doctor reduced one of her medications at the 3-month mark. 3 different patients, 3 different starting points, 1 consistent pattern. Here is exactly what to do. 5 steps. All of them begin before you take your first bite. Step 1, always eat something green or protein-rich first. Before you touch the bread, the rice, the pasta, or the potato how, eat a few bites of vegetable or protein. This does not have to be a full salad. 3 bites of steamed broccoli, a small handful of baby carrots, 2 or 3 bites of chicken, fish, eggs, or legumes. You are sending the slow down signal to your gut before the glucose wave arrives. Do this at every meal, consistently, for 2 weeks. And most people in my patient population notice a measurable difference. Step 2, never eat bread on an empty stomach. Bread on an empty stomach, of especially white bread, but also many commercial whole grain varieties, produces one of the sharpest glucose responses in the standard American diet. The same bread, eaten after protein and vegetables, produces a meaningfully lower spike. If you arrive at a restaurant very hungry and the bread basket appears, drink water, request olive oil, and wait until your salad or appetizer arrives before you eat a single piece. Step 3, switch to whole grain cans, but always eat it last. Whole grain bread is not a free pass. Many commercial whole grain breads still have a high glycemic index and will spike your glucose if eaten first. The combination that works is whole grain eaten last. The fiber in whole grain slows digestion marginally. The protein and vegetables before it slow digestion significantly. Together, they produce a much flatter curve than either change alone.
Step 4, add a 10-minute walk after eating. This is not about burning calories.
Skeletal muscle is the largest glucose sink in the human body. When you use your muscles, even briefly, even moderately proddy, they pull glucose out of your bloodstream without requiring insulin to do it. A 10-minute walk after a meal can lower your 2-hour post-meal glucose by 15 to 20 points in many patients. Walk around the block. Walk up and down your hallway. Walk to check the mail and back. The duration matters more than the pace. Step 5, do not guess, measure. If you have access to a glucometer, or if your doctor can authorize a short-term use, get some numbers. Continuous glucose monitor, Track your 2-hour post-meal readings for 2 weeks before changing anything that counts. Then track them again for 2 weeks after implementing sequencing. Most patients are surprised by what the data shows. Foods they feared produce lower spikes than expected when eaten in sequence. Foods they thought were safe produce higher spikes than expected when eaten first. The data changes the conversation. It also keeps you motivated, prions, because you are not being asked to give up food. You are being asked to rearrange it. And the numbers will show you the difference within days. Now 10th, here is the one I promised earlier. The move almost nobody in my patient population has heard of. It is called the vinegar preload. 2 teaspoons of apple cider vinegar, fully diluted in a tall glass of water, consumed 5 minutes before a meal that contains carbohydrates. That is it. Multiple small studies, including a 2004 trial published in Diabetes Care and a 2007 study from Arizona State University Care, found that this protocol reduced post-meal blood glucose peaks by approximately 20% in participants with insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes. The effect was most pronounced when the meal contained high glycemic carbohydrates. The mechanism: acetic acid, or the active compound in vinegar pho, appears to inhibit the enzymes responsible for breaking starch into glucose and to slow gastric emptying in a manner similar to the protein effect we described earlier. I want to be clear about the limitations. These studies are small. The effect varies by individual. Apple cider vinegar is acidic enough to damage tooth enamel and irritate the esophagus if taken undiluted tow, which is why I specify a full tall glass of water, consumed through a straw, and always with your physician's knowledge. But if you have a history of acid reflux, gastroparesis, or are on medications that affect stomach acid. But for patients who want a second layer of glycemic buffering on top of food sequencing con, the vinegar preload is the most consistently reported additional benefit I have seen. Combined with the sequencing approach, the two together produce a meaningfully flatter glucose curve than either one alone. 2 teaspoons, tall glass of water, 5 minutes before you eat, straw, check with your doctor first. That is the 5-minute protocol the title promised. And now you have both pieces of it. Before I close, I want to make sure you leave with something tangible. I put together a free downloadable called the 7-Day Blood Sugar Sequencing Tracker, Cornell. It is a 14-page printable guide that maps out the correct plate sequence for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, includes a 1-week pre- and post-tracking template sized for a basic glucometer, and lists the 40 most common foods by optimal meal position, first, middle, or last course, based on their glycemic and protein profiles. It is the tool I wish I could hand every patient at the first appointment. And it is free. The link is in the description. No email required. Download, print, and put it on your refrigerator. If you have someone in your household who is also managing blood sugar count, a spouse, a sibling, a parent, print a second copy for them. The plate sequence works at the family dinner table without requiring anyone to eat a different meal. This channel is supported in part by affiliate relationships with products I recommend in clinical contexts. Today's partner is Hegno, a continuous glucose monitoring service that pairs a wearable sensor with an app designed specifically for non-diabetic and pre-diabetic adults who want to understand their personal glucose response to specific foods. I have recommended real-time glucose monitoring for years as the most actionable single tool for metabolic self-awareness. Signos makes that accessible without a prescription. The affiliate link is in the description. If you use it, I receive a small commission at no additional cost to you. Let me bring this back to Margaret. Margaret has been eating bread, real bread, whole grain, 1 slice, always last, for the past 14 months. Her fasting glucose has dropped from an average of 118 to 108. Her most recent hemoglobin A1C came back at 5.7, out of the pre-diabetic range for the first time in 4 years. She did not take a new medication. She did not join a new program. She ate the salad first. I want to say one more thing clearly, because this is important. Food sequencing is not a cure for blood sugar dysregulation. If your A1C is above 7, or if you are on insulin, or if you have significant complications, this approach is a complement to your medical care, not a replacement for it. Talk to your physician. Bring them the research. Use this alongside whatever protocol you are already following.
But if you are in the prediabetes range pill, or if your blood sugar has been creeping upward and you have been told to restrict carbohydrates without much additional guidance pill,
What I shared today gives you tools that are evidence-based, accessible, and free. You do not have to give up bread to manage blood sugar. You have to understand what breath needs to come after. If this video was useful to you, please give it a like. It helps this channel reach more people in their 50s, 60s, and 70s who are navigating exactly this situation. And if you are not subscribed yet, do that now. I post new videos on metabolic health and blood sugar management for older adults every week. If you want to go deeper on the morning routine specifically to PAM, I did a full video on the 3 breakfast patterns that consistently produce the flattest glucose curves in patients over 60. That video is linked on screen right now. Watch that one next to BAM. It builds directly on what we covered here. One more thing before you go. Think about someone in your life who has been told to cut carbohydrates. A friend who has not eaten bread in years. A family member who skips the rice. A spouse who eats around the pasta at dinner and says nothing. Send this video to that person. Not because bread is fine for everyone in every quantity, but because the conversation about blood sugar has been stuck in the wrong frame for too long. The frame is not eat less carbs. The frame is eat carbs at the right moment. And that is a difference that shows up on a glucose monitor within hours, not months. Send it to them. It might change how they eat tomorrow morning. I will see you in the next video.